While the latest version of Alinity automates key workflows such as applications and renewals, there will always be a need for administrators to manually process registration changes. However, every regulatory authority and professional college has its own unique requirements. That's why Alinity was developed as a framework solution, which means it can be extensively customized to meet each regulator's needs. There are four main configuration points for registration changes: setting up the registration change mapping, adding registration change reasons, configuring the change requirements, and assigning fees. In this video, we're going to look at configuring registration change requirements. In order to configure change requirements, you'll need an administrative account with at least the settings administrator permissions. You should have all your allowed registration changes already mapped out in the software, along with the relevant change reasons. We recommend you have all your change requirements set out in a document beforehand, so that all you have to do is translate them into the software. Begin by logging in with your username and password combination. From the main dashboard, select Settings in the side navigation bar, then choose Registers. Now remember, registration changes are located on the register that registrants move from. In our example, registrants only need to provide requirements when moving from the inactive to the active register, so we're going to choose the inactive register. Once you're on your target register, scroll down to the Allowed Register Changes section and locate the registration change you want to add a requirement to. Click the blue checklist icon to see a list of change requirements already associated with the change. There are none here currently, so to add a registration change requirement, click the blue Add icon. For this example, we're going to require the registrant to provide a criminal record check before moving them back onto the active register. So we'll select the document requirement type. Then we'll select CRC for the actual requirement. Unfortunately, a driver's license is the only document requirement currently set up under that type. It looks like we'll have to add a CRC to the requirement type so that it appears in this drop-down list. To do that, go back to the settings, but this time click the Requirement Types button. The only hard and fast rule when it comes to requirements is that you cannot duplicate them. So if, for example, you require a criminal record check for changes both into the active register and the conditional register, you would use the same requirement for both. If you attempt to configure a CRC requirement when one already exists, you will encounter an error. Otherwise, feel free to group requirements as you see fit. If you want to configure a completely new group, click the Add button. You'll be required to name the group and can add a category if you desire, though it is not necessary. You also need to decide if the type applies to people or organizations. You can also set the requirement type to be a default if you want, and you can make it inactive as well. We're just going to edit our existing group though, so we'll click on the chevron to the right. If we wanted to, we could edit the group, but we're just going to add a requirement to this type. Here we are required to identify the specific requirement. A criminal record check is a document, not a declaration or exam, so we'll leave this as is. We need to provide a description and can provide optional administrative guidance, which creates a tooltip that can be clicked on for additional information on what is required to meet the requirement. In the document type field, we'll select Criminal Record Check, though we have a wide variety of other options to choose from for different document requirements. If registrants were required to take an exam, we'd set that in the exam field. Finally, if you want the requirement to expire, such as every 12 months in the case of annual requirements, you can set that in the expiry field. Once you save the requirement, you can now return to the Register Change Requirements list and select it from the requirement type subset. If you'd like a preview of how the requirement will appear when processing the change, click the eye icon. Here you'll see a complete list of the requirements, as well as the description and tooltip guidance you provided earlier. With your registration change requirements in place, it's time to move to the final configuration point, assigning fees. To learn more about assigning fees, watch the next video in this series. And, as always, if you have any questions or concerns, contact Softworks at 1-800-755-1546 or email us at support@softworksgroup.com.